Okay, so that was my second part about some coding idioms. And now I would like to switch over to some bada UI basics. All right, when we talk about controls in bada, we obviously mean UI controls. There are all the standard UI controls available, which you know, like buttons, labels, and all the rest of it. We also have, of course, lists. We have a custom list where you can customize the entries. You can insert icons or photos and stuff like that. We have overlay keypads and text fields, color picker. Now this is an interesting one. This is also a list, but it's an image view of that list. The next one is a pretty interesting one. It's a flash control, so you can embed into your bada application flash animations or flash menus. You can also embed into your bada application a web browser, so a web control. And the last one is also a pretty handy one and pretty nice one, is the possibility to embed geographic information or maps into your bada applications. Now, it's quite important to understand the structure of the screen in bada. Well, every application as its top-level window has exactly one frame. And within that frame, you can have several forms. So a form itself is a container, and a form can contain other forms, but it can also contain, more importantly, all the various controls. Things like tabs, lists, menus, soft keys, buttons, whatever. And then you can actually switch between those forms. Now, how does it look like in a bit of code? In order to create and show a form within a frame, what we have to do is basically 3 simple steps. The first one is, and you might recall this is the two-phase construction thing. So the first thing what you do is we create a form object. So no memory is allocated for the member variables here. And then in the second step, we use the construct method in order to really initialize all the memories and allocate all the memories. What you have here is some parameters how you would have to have the form look like. Now the second step then is to add the form physically to the frame. So what we do is we have to get our frame object. We get that by invoking the method getFrame, and then it's stored in our pFrame variable. And then by invoking the method addControl, we can then add our form control into the frame. So that means after the second step, we now have our form physically within our frame. And now eventually the third step is then to show the form. Well, as I said earlier, every frame can have several forms. So first thing we have to do is we have to set our form to the current one. We do this by invoking setCurrentForm. And then eventually, to actually show the form, we have to request a redraw, which means the form is drawn and then shown eventually. And then we have it on the screen. Now, of course, the UI of bada obviously supports event handling. Just to give you one example, we support various forms of touch events. Like, for example, if you tap the screen, that would issue a touch pressed event. If you keep it pressed and move over, there would be a touch moved event. And if you release it, there would be a touch released event. And there are several other touch events, like, for instance, the on touch double pressed event. How can you make use of touch events? The first thing you have to do is you have to inherit from the appropriate listener interface. In our case, that's the iTouch event listener. The second step is then to implement your logic into the event handler method. In that case, we would like to have our logic in the onTouch pressed event method. And then eventually, the third step is to add our listener to the control. Yeah, the last thing I would like to mention in this part of UI control is our tool, which is called the UI Builder. Well, the UI Builder is, again, a very handy tool because it helps you to visually create your UI. It's what you see is what you get editor. So basically, in the middle, you have your design area where you can put all the controls and arrange them however you like them. So it means you don't have to code all those stuff. You can do that actually visually, which saves you a lot of time. On the left-hand side, we have the Resource Explorer, where then you have all the resources which you integrated into your UI. On the right-hand side, there is the list of controls, so you can easily really take whichever control you like and just move it over to your design area. And then at the bottom, we have this field where you can define all the properties of your various controls.